Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast, a show where normal guys talk about the films that they love. And here are your hosts, Bryce Thompson, Brian Hammond, and Cody Ryrie. Now get ready, because the show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast. I am Bryce Thompson, and I'm here with Cody Ryrie and Brian Hammond.
Hello.
Hello.
Today, we wanted to talk about, some of us very reluctantly, but we wanted to talk about our top 10 movies that we love and cherish. Cody, I'll let you take this over since it is your idea, and you are forcing some of us to do this out of the not wanting to do it. Anyways, go for it.
Yes. Okay, well, first to make it very clear, this is not the list of what we think are the 10 best movies of all time. That is the path to madness. This is just 10 personal favorite movies. Now, that being said, it's a list that many of us have had a hard time ranking, especially.
Yes.
Much less making.
Yes.
And also, Brian, you wanted to put some kind of moral disclaimer on your list first. Did you want to do that now, or?
No, I'm okay. I just don't like ranking. There's just too many. And so I have to break it down into sections by when someone asks me what's your favorite movie, it's like, well, what genre or what director? There's just too many. It's just very hard for me. I find it very frustrating and somewhat useless task for me. So, anyways.
Well,
I'll second that.
That's why I did it. That's why I did it, because I live to frustrate both.
Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado,
that's very true.
I'm gonna have what we're gonna do. We're gonna each list our top 5, and then go back around and list. Or I'm sorry, 10 to 5 on our list, and then we'll go back around and do 5 to 1. And Brian, you picked to go first because I assigned it to you. And so, if you want to give us your number 10 to number 5. List.
Okay, we're just naming the films or small description.
Naming them and okay. Name it and talk about why you love it.
All right.
Just give us a little short.
Well, number 10, I put Moulin Rouge. It's from '01, and the reason I put that is because so one of the good barometers, I guess, is if you have a hard time ranking things, is what you've seen the most, right? That's a good barometer of what you find the most enjoyable or your most favorite movies. And so I put that on there because it holds the record for the film I've seen the most times in a paid theater. Saw it 7 times in a full price theater and once in a cheap theater. However, I haven't revisited it in quite some time, and so anyways, I love it because I try to include some from each genre. Would be in my romance genre, I guess, and musical. But I love it. It's just a visual explosion and almost, on the verge of being over just, in your face. But I love it. It makes me tear up just a little, if we're going to admit that on here.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Yeah, I tear up in this one. So that's my number 10. So keep going, right?
Yeah.
All right. Number 9, I wanted to throw a horror film on there, especially since that's one of my favorite genres. So I did It Follows, just because that's made the most impact on me in recent years. Just because it took me back to as a kid how I felt, on those early stalker films, Halloween and Friday the 13th, that kept me up all night. And it's just so well crafted as far as its visual quality and the sound, the music, everything. It just plays into it, to this nice perfect package for me. So that's number 9. Number 8, a comedy. I went with What About Bob? You guys all know I know that movie inside out. This could probably be higher up on the list for me, but I threw it at number 8 just because if you haven't seen it, what hole are you living in? Because it's one of the best comedies out there. I love it. Let's see, number 7. I went with the Hitchcock Rear Window. And the reason I like this, I just watched it a couple nights ago at a friend's request, and I love it. I've seen it many, many times. This is one of those ones that I used to watch as a family. You'd lay on the carpet and you'd just be engaged the whole time. He delivers, Hitchcock, the old saying, he's the master of suspense. It holds true with this film particularly because from start to finish, he just does such a good job of developing that the characters and the tension that's going to play out in the next hour, and it's just wonderful. Number 6, No Country for Old Men, which was in 2007. Sorry, I've been forgetting the years. Rear Window was 1954.
No, it's all right.
And what about Bob, 1991? No Country for Old Men's 2007. That's number 6 on my list. Visually, this is one of the most incredibly visual films I've ever seen as far as the cinematography, the locations. And I'm a Coen Brothers fan. I just love, the dialogue. I love the brooding suspense that builds up. It's a different type of suspense than Hitchcock, but it's still there, So I love that one. And number 5? Wait.
No, because we're going to do
Okay.
5 next. Yeah.
Good.
10 through 6. I want to make a few comments about yours, though.
All right.
Before we move on.
Bring it.
Yeah, they're stupid. No, they're not. I really liked Moulin Rouge is a movie I saw when I worked in high school at the movie theater.
Okay.
And I remember it making a really big impact on me, especially as a fairly idealistic romantic high schooler.
Uh-huh.
It really, it's funny at the beginning. It's a very funny movie. And then it turns into this terrible gut-wrenching tragedy towards the end, spoiler alert. And all on top of the really interesting use of this. It's one of those total package movies with the visuals, the music, the costumes, the sets, the everything, the performances. So I loved that movie. I also, if we were doing a list past 10, number 11 for me would be No Country for Old Men. I love No Country for Old Men. It just barely missed.
Just recently, too, it got bumped. Is that right, Cody? So I'm anxious to hear what took its place.
Today it got bumped. So I love that movie. I love how it's just perfectly crafted. Also, Rear Window. I do have Hitchcock on my list, but not Rear Window. But it was close because Rear Window was my gateway drug to Hitchcock.
Yeah.
That's the one that got me hooked. And I don't think there's a better purely visual movie ever than Rear Window. Just perfect, pure cinema. So yeah, wonderful start to a list. Bryce, take us up a notch. 10 to 6 for you. What do you got?
All right. So, starting off with number 10. This is hard. This was very hard. So, I'll just tell you the movie that I replaced it with. My number 10 I had at first was Apocalypto, the Mel Gibson movie.
Fascinating.
The movie just intrigues me very much. I think about it quite a bit. But instead, I put Nightcrawler, the Jake Gyllenhaal movie. I think I put that movie because it creeped me out so much and it kind of slightly stole some of my soul that it deserves a top 10 spot because of that. I love when, because I showed it to my parents and my family, and they were just silent after it ended, and that was pretty amazing as well because I knew that it got the effect that I wanted, and so that was always amazing. And it just shocks me, and it makes me happy in a very weird and creepy way that's kind of not okay, but it's just so good. And
Yeah.
I feel like it needs to have more recognition than it got, and that's also another reason why I put it in top 10, because I really feel like Jake Gyllenhaal just did an amazing job in that show. I mean, it was just in that movie. It was just amazing. Number 9, I put The Departed, and that movie it's kind of lumped in with all of my movies. And you'll notice that most of these movies come when I was in the glory days of my movie watching, when I had nothing else to do, was when I was a teenager. But that's when I first saw this movie, and it blew my mind. I remember watching the epic long movie like a whole bunch, like right after I saw it. I just rewatched it a whole bunch of times, and it's so good. I mean, I love Matt Damon, and I love Leonardo DiCaprio, two of my most favorite actors, and so just their performance together was amazing. I loved how they did the two different sides. I thought that was really fascinating, and it's just, it has one of my most favorite directors, actors, and so it's just got everything in it, and so it honestly probably should be farther up, but I give it a number 9. Number 8 is Seven, and
Sorry, my OCD. If you could just bump that up one spot, Bryce.
Number
please.
87, yeah, that's good.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the dates as well. Nightcrawler's 2014, The Departed's 2006, Seven's 1995. Now, I hadn't seen this movie until very recently when Cody told me to watch it immediately, and I did, and it blew my mind. Like, it literally blew my mind. I couldn't even... I'm speechless when I think about that movie because it's just so good, and it's so just entertaining. Like, I wasn't bored the whole time I was watching it. You're engaged the whole time. And of course, the ending. You'll notice in most of these movies that there's quite a few twists in the movies that I like. But number 7 is Reservoir Dogs. This was the first Tarantino movie that I'd ever seen, and which is his first movie that he really made. And so I find it very intriguing. Going into Tarantino is a whole other conversation, but I go back and forth between Jackie Brown and Reservoir Dogs as my favorite Tarantino movie. But I think Reservoir Dogs is taking it today in new ways, just because it makes me think of life. Whenever I think of good movies, I always think of Reservoir Dogs. And number 6 is Beast of No Nation.
Wow.
I mean, when I watched that movie, it blew me away, and I just couldn't believe that Netflix was the ones that were backing, this kind of a movie, and it makes me excited for Netflix, but also it just told such a good story, kind of like a very eye-opening story, and it's very good. Also, Reservoir Dogs is 1992, and Beast of No Nation is 2015. So, yeah.
That's interesting. It seems like, Brian, yours as well, but I really thought it stuck out with Bryce's is, so far, your first half of your list, there's really, really strong points of view behind the camera.
Yeah.
These are people who really know what they want and really go after it. David Fincher, Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, these are really strong filmmakers. You're like Brian, 7 was really close for me.
Yep.
It's sitting on the fringe of my list. It's right over here. It's looking on with sad eyes because it didn't quite make it. But 7 was a life-changing event for me.
Yeah.
If there hadn't been 10 other life-changing events, just a little bit more seismic, it would have made it on the list. I still love it to this day. And there's a funny Facebook thing that I shared. I think I shared it with you, Bryce, but somebody else shared it with me. It was somebody had sent a box out with toys, and it said Frozen Elsa head.
Yes, that's amazing. That is so amazing.
And somebody had written Disney's 7 on top of it. So I thought that was very funny. Anyway, fantastic starts to our lists here. I'll do mine real quick from 10 to 6. The movie that replaced No Country for Old Men, you were asking about this, Brian, was Pan's Labyrinth from 2006. As much as I love Del Toro, none of his movies were in my top 10 for a really long time. And if it hadn't been for a really, really interesting and enlightening screening of this, It was on TV, but we can say a screening. It was on a TV with Paul, who's been on the show before, Paul Benson, and his wife, and some of the amazing insights they brought up. It really pushed it over the edge for me. I love the design of it. I love the message behind it. I love the fact that it's not just visuals for visual's sake. It's amazing visuals that tell a story at the same time. I imagine that one, it's crawled its way up to the top 10. It's probably going to keep crawling its way up as it goes, and especially once Criterion puts out their version, I'm sure I'll get so excited it'll move up a couple spots. But yeah, Pan's Labyrinth from 2006 is number 10. Number 9 is The Searchers from 1956. That's a Western starring John Wayne, where he plays ex-Confederate soldier in the West who's looking for a girl who was abducted by Indians, and he's super racist. And the movie is hard-hitting and amazing to look at. It's filmed in the old VistaVision process by John Ford. It looks amazing. The acting is incredible. Though some of the writing is almost biblical in the way that it feels. And the ending always gets me. I won't ruin it, but man, does it always get me. I can just think about it now, and I'm starting to get the emotions. Anyway, so number 9 is The Searchers. Number 8 is The Third Man from 1949. This is a movie with Orson Welles and Joseph Cotten. I love it because I love movies that have a place, like a sense of place. And it was filmed in Vienna after World War II, and everything was bombed out. It has a really interesting score. It's this old kind of gritty crime drama with some comedy in it, and that's right up my alley. So yeah, number 8's The Third Man. Number 7 is Seven Samurai. Is that better, Brian? 7 is Seven Samurai. Does
nice.
that work for
you?
Okay.
Way better.
Number 7 is Seven Samurai from 1954. Just, again, it's kind of the perfect action movie. It's this amazing 3 hours and some change epic that takes all these characters you really grow to love, and then it's kind of a procedural. It tells you step by step how to defend a village back in the Middle Ages in Japan. And it goes over every step and every attack, and who survives and who doesn't is heart-wrenching and so good. I just couldn't imagine leaving that one off. An absolute favorite movie. And number 6 is The French Connection from 1971. Again, like The Third Man, this is a gritty, urban crime drama. I just have a thing for those. And again, sense of place. This is 1970 New York City. There are no sets in this movie. It is all filmed on the streets. Often they didn't have permission and they didn't have the proper permits, so they're trying to do a high-speed chase, and some guy drove onto the set and they hit him, and it's in the movie. That kind of stuff. You just really can't. You can't get a substitute for that kind of realism. Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider play buddy cops in that, and they are so good with each other and by themselves. It's just a fantastic 70s crime thriller. One Best Picture of the year it came out. So that's number 6 for me. Okay. Brian, are you ready to bring it home? 5-1.
Sure. All right, number 5. I went with Drive from 2011. This is Nicholas Winding Refn's, I think, 3rd film, if I remember right. No, sorry, 4th. And I don't know what I love about this. I just like stylized films that really kind of I don't know, that really make you kind of pushes the boundaries, and there's parts in this movie that can kind of make you feel uncomfortable. I think he only has 118 lines, Ryan Gosling's character, which is very few. The first Refn film I ever saw was Valhalla Rising, where the main protagonist doesn't speak through the entire film. He's a mute. And so this is kind of a thing that he likes to do, apparently, but I just loved the feel of it. Kind of had this 80s neon vibe feel. I remember when first seen in the theater, and there were lawsuits that people filed against the director because the trailer was so misleading. They thought it was going to be this Fast and Furious movie, and they got in there in this very niched, very kind of a noir feel to it, and it was just not what people expected, and very bouts of violence that are very jarring, very unexpected, and very emotional movies. So that's my number 5. Number 4, I went with Citizen Kane from 41. Of course, this is Orson Welles' classic. There's movies that you remember the very first time you watched it, and this is one of those for me. I just remember seeing it for the first time and just being blown away at just the direction that Welles gave in this film. For it, everything just seems so far ahead of its time with different things that they used, different shots, and that evoked different feelings and different images in your head. It's just very good film. Number 3, I went with Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey from 1968. This was hard for me because, like I said, I don't like ranking them, and it's very difficult for me, but I feel pretty comfortable with this at number 3. This is another one that you remember the first time you see it, just because, first of all, you're amazed in wonderment of what the heck is going on. This epic, film from 1968 that is a contemporary with Leave It to Beaver. I keep telling myself that every time I watch it, that this was filmed at the same time, and it's just when you get yourself in that mindset of realizing what was taking place, and what he was able to do to recreate space is just phenomenal. Just in the visual effects, throw everything out. Just for that, it's phenomenal. Let's see. Number 2, I went with Christopher Nolan's Memento from 2000. This was one of those game changers for me, like your 7 Fincher film. I watched this, 2000. It's after, I've kind of grown up a little, and this is kind of the real film, first film that kind of really hit me upside the head, like films can be this way, that type of feeling. And literally it feels like he took a stack of index cards and just threw them and then rearranged them, and that's what he made the movie at. And it appears that way on the surface, but it's very, very well thought out. It's the most non-linear movie you'll probably ever see. And, there's actually ways you can watch it in order on like YouTube or something. And I have no desires to do that. I think it would lose all of its appeal, and I just don't want to ruin it for me. So if you haven't seen Memento, you got to see it. It's really a great film. And with my number 1, the barometer that I talked about, if you've seen it the most times, it's probably a favorite movie. I went with, this is a little bit of a cheat because it's a Christmas film, but It's a Wonderful Life from 1946, Frank Capra. I've seen this movie hands down the most out of any other film I've ever seen, partly because it's an annual tradition. But what can you... I don't know. It's just a perfect film because it raises you up, it knocks you down, it leaves you raised up again, and I don't know what father, and it had new meaning once I became a father, but it definitely leaves this pit in your stomach on his downward spiral. Not too many spoiler alerts, I guess, but if you haven't seen it, oh gosh, you're not an American for one thing. Go find a copy and watch it, for crying out loud. But it's just a great film, and you can probably fill in a little more Cody and be a little more elegant about it. But it's just one of my favorites. So.
Well, I will say that It's a Wonderful Life will also make an appearance on my top 5. I won't say where yet, but it's. If a movie's purpose is to give you empathy for its characters, then It's a Wonderful Life is the highest expression of that.
Yes.
There is, and over and over and over again. That's the thing that just blows me away, because almost every piece of art, every piece of music, or every painting, or every movie, that the more you view it, sometimes there's a law of diminishing returns. It stops feeling as much. It stops inspiring you as much. And It's a Wonderful Life never loses its power, and I don't understand how that's possible. But it's true. Every year, again, we watch it at Christmas, and every year I'm like, oh, I've seen this. I know what happens. And sure enough, about 10 minutes in, there I'm at. I'm hooked. And I'm going through it, and that's it. We're over,
I got a funny story with one of my movie friends. He had never seen this, and I said, how have you never seen this? And he says, well, it's a Christmas movie. Apparently has, kind of this thing for Christmas movies. He thinks they're subpar. I don't know, but I brought him in, sat him down, watch it. It wasn't Christmas at all. I watch this throughout the year, just when I want to feel good. It doesn't have to be around Christmas time. But so anyways, a couple months ago, I sat him down and watched it. And after it was just done, the credits, are rolling, or actually just has the ending. And I said, well, what'd you think? And all he said was, yes. Just one word, and that was it. And just shook his head, and he was speechless besides that one word. And I mean, I wish I could watch it for the first time again. So, pretty cool.
Well, and I read an autobiography of Frank Capra, the guy who directed it, and this is one of the few times when I agree with the director's own appraisal of the movie, because when it came out, people think it was a giant failure. It wasn't. It made its money back, but it wasn't a huge success either, like his other movies had been. They've been much bigger successes. But he said he was confused by that, because he said, in all humility, which I don't know how humble Frank Capra was. Not very humble. But he said that not only was it the best movie he had ever made, but he thought it was the best movie anybody had ever made. And I think there's a real case to be made for that. And even though it was said by the guy who made it, you still can't ignore that that's a statement that has to be dealt with by every person who loves movies.
Yes.
So... okay, yeah, wonderful list, Brian. Yeah, fantastic. So, Bryce?
Before, I just wanted to comment on Memento. That movie blows my brain. Like, I think about Memento, and I'm like, yeah, put it on the list. I'm like, sure. Because, I mean, it's just so... I don't even know. Like, I'm speechless when I think of that movie. I'm speechless when I talk about a lot of movies, but I mean, that one really does. Like, it's so interesting just the way it's put together, and I really liked the index card analogy, because that does seem just like what he did. He's like, hey, I'm going to write this movie, and then I'm going to throw it in the air and just do it. But it's so much more complicated like that, like you said, that it's very well done. But my number 5, my 5th movie, Saving Private Ryan, 1998. This movie, I had to put a war movie in there because I love them. I think they're very interesting, very exciting. And this one is definitely my favorite. It kind of shaped the way they are now. It's just done a lot for the genre of war movies, conflict movies. And I mean, this one is a favorite by far. I remember being terrified of it when I was younger. When they stormed the beach, that was terrifying. And as I grew older and kind of learned and understood what was going on, it became more. It definitely meant more to me, because it's definitely one of the most, I mean, besides if you have like live footage, is probably the most realistic thing of like battle that I think you could really experience. I mean, it's just so intense.
Yeah.
And I'll never ever ever get the scene, the view of when the guy is walking around trying to find his arm. I mean, that will never leave me ever. I mean, it's just so powerful. And, just the story of it, that, there's some people, I guess maybe this isn't the exact story or the exact thing, but that's kind of what I get out of it is, some people are more important than you, but that doesn't mean that you aren't important. I mean, you're still important, but at the time, someone might be more important than you, and like Tom Hanks when they first start off to find Private Ryan, they're like, "What the heck? Why are we doing this? We don't know who this guy is. Who is he?" And he tells them, "This is our job." He says, "This is what we've been told to do." And he doesn't say that he's not important. He doesn't say that he is important, but he doesn't tell his men that they're less important either. He just says, this is what we need to do right now. He's important. He has been said that he is more important than us right now. So let's focus up and let's do it. And not even people.
It's an interesting. I never even thought of it that way. That's interesting. It's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah, and also if you listen to our coming of age movies or whatever, the stories you'd show your children, this is one of them, because I think it shows so many good points of like growing up and like what you should become as a person. But anyways, moving on. My fourth movie is The Boondock Saints. This movie is pretty huge in my film development, which is kind of a silly statement in a way, because it's definitely not celebrated, really, but it's definitely a cult classic. I think it just takes everything that I love about movies and it just jams it all together and just makes something insane splatter of everything. It's just a crazy movie. It just has everything awesome in it. I mean, it's definitely, your get together with your best friends and watch a movie and then talk about how awesome it was. It's just deep in my, has a special place in my heart. And yeah, that was in 1999 when that came out. Number 3 is Mad Max Fury Road, 2015. This movie has inspired lots of things. This podcast, for one. And I remember when I first saw the trailer for Mad Max, my brain didn't know what to do. It kind of just wrote it off, and I was like, that is, I was like, what even happened? Okay, moving on. But then I watched the trailer again, and I was like, oh my gosh, I must see this. Like, this is insane. And watched it, and I watched it again, and again, and again, and it's just so good. I mean, I think the thing that gets you the most is the colors. I mean, they just blow your face off and just suck you in. They suck you into the story, and everyone says that there's like no story, there's no plot, there's no nothing to it. But that's what I love about the movie, is it's so much more. There's no dialogue, but actually there's lots more story being told than just by the words. And I mean, the vehicles that they're driving, they tell the story. And it's just very interesting of a movie to me. And, to see George Miller, who's a crazy old man, make this awesome movie is pretty inspiring. Number 2, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. This movie...
Oh, wow. See, I thought that was going to be number 1. Now I'm curious. So.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's waning in number 1, but it definitely holds a special place, especially if you've been a listener of the film cast. You have definitely heard this movie talked about, but it's a tradition. I've seen it a billion times. I totally sucked at the quiz, but I still love it. I still love it a lot. And number 1 is Fight Club.
Okay.
Fight Club, it blows my mind. And I think that's why I liked it so much. Because I really like when movies make me just sit there and say, what? Like, that's... If you're a director listening to this and you want to make me love your movie, do that, and I'll love it forever. But movies that just make me just stop and think and make me go question everything that I'm about, I really like that, and I think why I like it and why it does that is because Tyler Durden, he just questions everything, and he is just completely opposite of everything that I ever have been, which is on purpose. But he makes you think about stuff. He makes you think about your life, and I find that very fascinating. And it's also just a really crazy, insane movie. And I also watched it at the most perfect time. So that is my list.
Fascinating. Well, when you talk about Fury Road, just really quick, I know we've talked about it ad nauseum a ton, but it really is one of those movies that uses cinema to tell its story, and that's why people miss it.
Yes.
Because they're used to being spoon-fed.
Yes.
And you can't spoon-feed Mad Max. Well, I guess you can. I mean, you can watch it as like just a big dumb action movie, but there's nothing dumb about it if you put any thought into it. It's actually a very smart film that uses the language of cinema to tell its story and not dialogue.
Exactly. The first show that we ever had, which wasn't recorded ever, was right after we watched Mad Max. We just stood outside and talked about it for it was easy an hour.
In the parking lot.
Easy an hour. Just talking about all the different symbolism, all the different meanings. I mean, there's so much to this movie that it's insane that there's so much in it. For what it is,
See,
it's crazy.
Here's the thing, though. You and I stood outside the theater. These are both at Edwards, these stories I'm going to tell. And we talked about the movie for an hour, and nobody bothered us. Brian and I go sit in his car and talk about The Revenant and other movies for an hour, and the cops stopped us and rolled the windows down and shined flashlights in our faces and wanted to know what was going on. So I think Brian's the unstable element there, because I was in both situations and the cops only showed up in one of them. So
yeah.
That's all I have to say. All right, well, okay. Bringing it home, my 5 to 1. Number 5 for me is Anatomy of a Murder. It's from 1959. It's a Jimmy Stewart movie about true story. He's a trial lawyer who's defending a man who killed another man who may or may not have raped his wife. There's a lot of things that don't get answered for sure. Anyway, this is my love of procedure again. It is basically step by step how a trial works. And Jimmy Stewart is so good in the movie. And also as the lawyer he's against, George C. in an early performance is amazing. It's just a fantastic movie. Anybody can watch it. It's actually a little risque for 1959. But they got away with saying a lot of things that you'd think would be questionable. Anyway, fantastic movie. Number 4, this is where Hitchcock comes in, is Vertigo from 1958. Again, Jimmy Stewart, all over my list, because Jimmy Stewart, again, makes me believe in him and feel what he's feeling almost unlike any other actor. And when he gets together with great directors, like Alfred Hitchcock, amazing things happen. And it could have been Rear Window. Rear Window is right up there, but Vertigo for me is just the perfect culmination of movie craft, actor, story, everything all together. And that's another one that I can watch over and over and over again. It doesn't get less powerful. Number 3 is this is my only. It's kind of a drama, but it's mostly a comedy. It's my only comedy. Is American Graffiti from 1975. It's a George Lucas movie. Actually, George Lucas made this before he made Star Wars. It was made 2 years before Star Wars, and to me, it's better than Star Wars. It's the story of a bunch of high school students their last night in town before they go off to jobs or college or wherever they're going. And I can't remember who said it. I had it written down, but somebody once said that art is, something's art when you stand before it and you say, I am that. You can find yourself in it. And I've never felt more like I was represented in a movie than in American Graffiti. Those were my friends. Those were my feelings, my experiences. And even though it takes place back in the 60s, it feels universal to even now. A lot of great early performances by people like Richard Dreyfuss and Ron Howard, who later became a director, but a fantastic movie. George Lucas's best movie, in my opinion. Number 2 is The Red Shoes, which we've talked about on the Filmcast a lot, which I made you both watch, and you both dutifully watched it and didn't like it as much as I did, but still found nice things to say, so thank you. And that was in 1948. It's the ballet, the Technicolor ballet movie that I like so much. And number one, embarrassingly enough, is the same number one as Brian's. It's a Wonderful Life. We have the same number one movie for reasons articulated previously. I would be embarrassed, but it's kind of self-evident, I think, that it should be everybody's favorite movie and not Fight Club. But that's okay. You can have your own opinion. Okay. Well, here's the fun part. We went through, we got the dates of all these movies, and we're going to do a couple of interesting stats to kind of reveal things that we each love about movies. I want everybody to go through their list and tell me the decade that is the most represented on your list. What 10-year period is more on there than anybody else, than anything else? I guess I can start while y'all are looking. Mine was a close shave. I was surprised by this, actually, because I didn't look at it till after I made the list. Mine was the 50s. I had 4 movies from the 50s, and I had 3 movies from the 40s. I thought it was going to be the 40s, but it ended up being the 50s. So, Brian, what did you have?
Well, I'm very well outspoken about my favorite decade, which is the 70s of cinema, but it's not represented here, which is surprising. So I have 4 films from the new millennium, from 2000 to 2010, and then 2 films from the 40s, so that was a close second.
Okay, Bryce?
I'm the 90s. I have 5 from the 90s.
That is interesting. See, I wouldn't have called that. I would have thought it had been newer than the 90s. That's fascinating.
No.
Okay. All right, and we're going to see who has the newest movie on their list. My newest movie is 2006. I think Bryce had newer ones than that.
I have Beast of No Nation and Mad Max Fury Road. And
Which are both 2015?
15?
Yes, 15.
Okay, so Bryce wins the award for newest movie. Oldest movie. What do we got?
Mine's 41.
What was 1941?
Citizen King.
Okay. Bryce, your oldest movie?
1987.
And that was Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
Yes.
Okay, my oldest movie was It's a Wonderful Life, 1945. So Brian wins the oldest movie award. Bryce wins the newest movie award. Okay, talk about color versus black and white. Bryce, did you have any black and white movies on your list?
No.
I
don't think I did.
Okay.
No, I don't. None.
Let's see. For mine,
I have 2.5.
Memento.
Memento.
That's right. That's good. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 black and whites, and 6 in color. And then the last thing, did anybody have, not foreign language necessarily, but just foreign movies? Anybody have foreign versus U.S.? Another thing I wanted to bring up. You're red, white, and blue, Bryce. I think you're all American.
I'm all America.
Unless Boondock Saints is
No.
made out to the U.S. or something. No, okay.
It's Boston. Boston all the way.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Brian?
I have a couple English directors, but they were Hollywood, so no, I'm all American.
I've got one from Spain, Pan's Labyrinth.
Yep.
And then I've got 2 that are British, which is The Red Shoes was made by a British production company in England, and The Third Man, even though it was made in Vienna, was made by a British production company and a British director. You know, you can say Hitchcock was a British director, but mine was made during his American period. So, does not count. Cool. Well, that's a fun thing that you can do as a film lover that we recommend is don't think about where they come from or how old they are, how new they are, anything. Just, make lists of your favorite movies. And then it's fun to go back and look at those things. Look at when the movies are that you love. And actually, something else I wanted to look at real quick, I forgot one. Sorry, are there any actors, the number one represented actor in our list?
Let me see here.
Because that's very telling, too.
James Stewart's mine.
Yeah, I've got 3 with James Stewart. That's mine too.
I think mine's probably Brad Pitt. I think with 7 in Fight Club. But that's okay because I quite like old Brad Pitt, so.
Well, did anybody have any? Well, you just did, Bryce. But any directors that were represented the most? I think yours is probably David Fincher. Yes, you have 2, right?
David Fincher.
Nothing to be ashamed about there. That's amazing. I don't have any repeats.
I don't either, because that was one of my criteria. I just started pulling favorites from my directors, so there wouldn't be any repeats.
Okay, well, cool. I guess I was saying before, we wanted to go back and grab those couple. Just make the list. Don't think about anything. Just think about the movies that you love, the ones you can't live without. And then it's really fun to go back and look and see what that says about you. And compare these lists with friends. We're going to be, one thing I wanted to mention, we've started a blog. Right now it's at valhallafilmcast.blogspot.com. We're working on making everything easier to access, but right now that's where it's at. We're going to be putting up all 3 lists on the blog so you can look at them. We would love for you to put up your list too in the comments section or send them to us any way you can on Facebook. We want to know what your favorite movies are. We can debate, go back and forth. It's just a fun thing that I love to do, no matter how painful that it can be. So
that's one thing. After this experience, I have to say it was very eye-opening and very fun to do. So even though it was probably one of the most painful things I have done in my life, it's good to do because it kind of opens your eyes and makes you think about what you're watching and what you like. And my list could change at any second. But for right now, this is it.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, this has been the Valhalla Filmcast. I am Bryce Thompson.
I'm Brian Hammond.
And I'm Cody Rowry.
And we'll talk to you next time.
The following views, opinions, and commentary are the sole property of the Valhalla Filmcast. Any unauthorized reproduction without prior consent is prohibited. Any incidental music, audio clips, or film trailers are used for the sole purpose of film criticism and commentary as allowed under the Fair Use Act.